It's no secret that most of the bands I listen to are from the United States and Canada, so it's nice to head over to my home continent every now and then and go for bands from the United Kingdom. I've done it before with bands from England, but today marks maybe the first occasion that I'll be taking a trip to Wales. Besides having a fucking awesome flag, Wales does come out with fucking awesome music too, with today's band being a great example. For My Valentine first founded Bridge in Wales, and they've technically been around since 1998, but that was a Jeff killed John, and they changed to their better known name in 2003, mostly due to financial issues as well as just being a cover band, and something I'll get into later. But still, to go from that to multiple-time Kerrang Award winners and one of the most prominent bands in Britain's new wave of heavy metal, the band have come pretty far. It's Backtracking, and this time, it's For My Valentine. Let's face the music. We start with the band's debut titled The Poison. Released in 2005 through Visible Noise and Trustkill Records and produced by Colin Richardson, this is also the band's longest album at 53 minutes and 26 seconds. Also, right off the bat, I'm not 100% sure. This album does contain the most songs I have from a Bullet album before listening to the album myself. Also, weirdly, the band's album lengths get shorter as they go along as we don't include deluxe editions. Hell, the version of The Poison that I found to listen to had the song Hand of Blood, which is one of the songs that I heard from this album anyway before actually listening to it, not to mention being the driving force for an EP of the same name before this album actually came out. Knowledge. Having said that, even if I found just the normal version of the album without Hand of Blood on it, this would still be their longest album. Weird how things like that turn out. Anyway, even though this album does contain arguably the band's most popular song in Tears Don't Fall, that actually wasn't my first BFMV song. It's still one of my favourites, easily in my personal top 5. But yeah, it wasn't my first. We'll get to that in a little bit though. The band's lineup for this one is probably the band's best known, and was that way for about a decade, with Matt Tuck on lead vocals/guitar, Jason J. James on bass and vocals, Michael Padgett on lead guitar and backing vocals, and Michael Moose Thomas on drums. Also, a bonus fact, but James wasn't the band's original bassist. That was Nick Crandall, but he was only with them in the Jeff Killed John days, so he doesn't count, and when you left, they changed to For My Valentine when Jay joined, so more knowledge. Anyway, in terms of structure, the band show their signature sound right off the bat with their fast-paced riffs and drumming combined screaming vocals and good singing too. I wouldn't call it great, but it does get better over time. Also, it's surprisingly well produced for its time, with a lot of polish having been put into things, and you can tell that it was handled really well with care. Lyrically, it does contain the band's main themes of relationships, conformity, and basically spitting back in the face of their detractors, of which they had many way back when they first started especially. Which I don't get since they all sound pretty good. Matt's vocals, whilst not perfect, do carry a decent range of motion with a good scream as well as some good riffs and solos. Padgett's own riffs and solos sound great too, with awesome speed and great shredding. Jay's bass work plays along well and good, but it's his own vocal work which is a standout from him, throughout all their stuff really, with great screams to go along with Padgett and Matt. And Moose's drumming is brilliant with a furious pace and surprisingly good timing. Standard songs include Forwards to Choke Upon, in brackets Look at Me Now, Hit the Floor, the title track, 10 Years Today, and my favourite in Tears Don't Fall. Combining a blistering pace and impacting songs with surprisingly much and good production, Bully sought out their legacy of albums in a damn good way, and I can really recommend this one. It's pretty good. We then move on to the band's second album, Scream, Aim, Fire. Released in 2008, there's label change as the band switched to Jive Records and 2020 Entertainment LLC, and the album was produced by Colin Richardson again. Also, this contains my first Bullet song in the intro title track. Yep, for most people it was Tears Don't Fall from The Poison or Hearts Burst Into Fire from this album, which makes more sense as radio tends to play more emotional stuff and those are two more emotional songs. But no, my first Bullet song was focused on war and violence and was super aggressive and very fast paced and had a really awesome music video. Actually, that's a good way to describe the band's sound as a whole, not the music video thing, but they do have those are good too. I've seen a lot of reviews that compare this one to their debut and say that this has less screaming, which is true, but it's far from just completely gone. There are a lot of great screams in this one, and the band even delves with some gang vocals, which actually sound surprisingly good. Bullet do take a different approach all in all, adding a thrash metal sound to the metalcore that they lay down in The Poison. Thrash metal equals faster instrumentals, which equals more solos and absolutely pounding structuring. Sure, the album isn't without its softer songs, but even those still have a good background that is toned down for the softer stuff, which I can appreciate. Also, we're trying to bring it up, but Screaming on Fire does feature the first and only instance of a guest vocalist. For this one, they have Benji Webb of fellow Welsh metal band Skindred providing vocals on the track Take It Out On Me. In terms of lyrics, it's still similar things from before, along with some little political tinges, as well as a focus on internal struggle in some songs, and it's handled with a surprising amount of poignancy. I will say, Bullet have never been known for being the best lyricists in the world, but they get a lot of it handled really well in this one, even handling heavy subjects with a good amount of emotion. It's not horribly imbalanced, and despite the faster pacing of everything happening, this album is pretty easy to pick up and play. Maybe that's just because it contains my first Bullet song and such, but I do genuinely feel that way despite my biases. Matt's vocals sound a lot better with the screams and clean singing picking up along with savages and solid solos. Patch's own guitar work is on point with great solos of his own and just a really good awesome work ethic. Jay's screams sound brilliant and his bass jokes along fantastically well, and Moose's drumming picks up on pace, speed and technique, hammering harder and faster. Standout songs include the title track, Never Forget You First, I guess, Waking the Demon, End of Days, Disappear, my favourite, the closing song, Forever and Always. Keeping up the emotion with the furious pacing, Bullet steps up a few notches for this one, with the production, emotion, experimentation, and balance all playing off really well. I can safely recommend this one. Next is the band's third album, Fever. Released in 2010, this is another record label change, as this one was released through Sony Music Entertainment / Jive Records and produced by Don Gilmore as opposed to Colin Richardson. This album was also my first Bullet album from front to back, and to be honest, I feel like I listened to it at the right time. See, I wasn't fully ready for the heavy music at the time, but I was starting to get into more metal in a sense, and Bullet were one of the reasons why. When I first heard the song The Last Fight from this album, which is one of the first singles, I never thought they would turn out to be such a good benchmark for this album's sound, but I was wrong. In fact, this is a more balanced piece of work by the band all in all, and it's really easy to access. It's pretty good accessible. That was almost a sentence. It's safe to say that Fever is the easiest Bullet album to get into, and it's a good starting point if you're someone who wants to get into heavy music but doesn't want to get into, say, Parkway Drive. Hell, it helped my own transition quite easily. I have a lot to like about this album and very little to dislike. Sure, there is less of a fast pace when compared to the thrash metal darlings of Scream and Fire, with Fever going for a more traditional heavy metal approach, but that does not take away from the actual heaviness. And also, in some weird way, adds even more emotion to things. Whilst it's not as heavy as previous efforts, there is reasoning for that, as Matt Tuck did need vocal surgery due to screams mangling his throat somewhat. So this was a necessary step back for that reason, and even having said that, there's still plenty of heavy moments to enjoy. Matt does do the odd scream here and there, but his clean singing was allowed to improve, which is a good sign. Jay does handle the majority of the screaming, but it's easy to tell the difference between Jay and Matt, even though the production does a damn good job of trying to disguise it. Couldn't slip it past me, though. In terms of lyrics, it's more of the same stuff, but with more stuff about loss and even an element of stupid, sexy metal. When it comes to structuring, it's not that different. The sound just had to be dialed back. It still works well, and there are still elements of thrash and metalcore, but with a slightly more rock approach, which works well. Matt's vocals sound good, and it's nice to hear that he's recovered well from his throat surgery, also playing good riffs and solos. Patch's own guitar work continues to improve, even adding some swanky guitar effects with his solos. Jay's bass work is more pronounced here, adding a damn good backbone as well as the screams and even some growls sounding amazing. And Moose's drumming is also good, with great fill speed and combos. Standout songs include the title track, The Last Fight, Breaking Out, Breaking Down, A Place Where You Belong, and my favourite, Indignity. With more emotion and a needed stylistic change, BFM churned out another solid album with good production, balanced motion, and accessibility. I can safely recommend this one. It's easy to get into. All you need. Next was the band's third album, Temper Temper. Released in 2013, it was again produced by Don Gilmore, but the band would change labels from Jive / Sony to RCA. This would also be the band's last album with their best lineup, as Jay James would leave in 2015 and be replaced by Jamie Mathias. Sorry, I'm slipping up so much. Also, the band doesn't have any guest appearances on this one technically, but they did co-write the lyrics for the song Dead to the World with Chris Jericho, and yes, I do mean the professional wrestler and lead singer of Fozzy. So, Temper Temper. I used to hate this album when I first heard it. I only listened to it once, which is when it came out, and I remember not liking it. That was about 5 years ago now, so my opinions have softened over time. Even having said that, this is still my least favourite For My Valentine album. I think that part of that is just this weird sense of regression. The band were progressing with their first three by keeping a course out and adding different things while still sounding like themselves. But this one, they went back to the heaviness of the Poison just without any of the emotion or charm which makes the album good. I mentioned before that Bullet aren't known for the best lyrics, but good as me are they just really repetitive on this one. Not in terms of repeating the same phrases, but the messages are so similar too. There's more political stuff on this one, and it's handled sort of decently, but there's just a lot that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It's hard to get inspired to start a revolution when the words behind it feel so empty, unless those words aren't even actual words and it's just the phrase "wow." I like a good "wow," but that is too much of it. Also, the production does Matt's vocals no favours. It tries too hard to cover up his imperfections. I feel like that could have taken a backseat and Matt should have been left to sing more on his own. It's a shame because the majority of the structuring on this album is actually handled really well. Sure, it does hark back to their old stuff and is also a bit repetitive, but there are some moments of good structuring there. It's such a shame that it's overlaid with bland lyricism and missed opportunities for production. Matt's guitar work is good, and whilst his vocals aren't terrible in this one, his lyrics leave a lot to be desired. Patch continues to be a standout with great riffs and solos, even though there are fewer instances of that. Jay's bass work is pretty good, with more time given to it, adding a good drive and pace, and Moose's drumming is also good, with a decent balance to it, even though he doesn't play as fast as the riffs demand, sadly. Standout songs include Saints and Sinners, Leech, Dead to the World, and my favourite in Tears Don't Fall, Part 2. And by the way, every time I do this, it means the song is in brackets because Bullet for My Valentine have a weird fetish for that. Anyway, whilst this album has its good moments, Temper Temper doesn't live up to its angry-sounding title, ditching emotion and focusing too much on production, having too much aggression without the balance required to pull it off successfully. Also, the lyrics just kind of suck. I can't really recommend this one. I just can't. It's worth listening to once. Not to say how bad it is, but to see what your own opinion is, but it wasn't a good one. It wasn't a good one. And finally, we reached the band's fifth album in Venom, that's supposed to be V. Released in 2015 through RCA again, and we get a producer change as the band rejoined forces with former producer Colin Richardson alongside Carl Bone. Not Brown, Bone. I did have it written as Brown initially, but I had to change it when I found out it was weird. Anyway, Venom is also the band's shortest album at 41 minutes and 7 seconds. Also, the title interests me in a nerdy way. It's the band's fifth album, and it's called Venom, which starts with a V, which is the Roman numeral for the number 5. Also, the word Venom has 5 letters in it. It's just something that I picked up on. I like little aesthetic things like that. But back to the action. This album would be the band's last album with drummer Michael Moose Thomas before Jason Bald would step in to replace him in late 2017, and the album would also be the band's first album with new bassist Jamie Mathias. Sort of. See, he's credited as a band member for the album, but he didn't actually play bass on it, with lead singer Matt Tuck taking over those duties. Still, I like to think that Jamie would make up some of the screams on this album, and if not, then it was Matt Tuck doing them. So, yeah, that poor dude had to work overtime for this one. Anyway, even though this album doesn't really have any guest appearances, there was a lot of gang of vocals for the song You Want to Battle, Here's a War, and since going through that list would take too damn long, I'll just bring up Austin Dickinson, best known for his work as lead singer of metal band Rise to Remain, as well as being Bruce Dickinson's son, who is the lead singer of Judas Metallica. Sorry, Iron Maiden, that's the one. In terms of the album structure, the album returns to the fast-paced screamo fire with the more melodic balance found in Fever. Actually, in a lot of places, this is seen as the band's heaviest output, which I can safely agree with. The band updated themselves to fit in with more modern metalcore, but didn't lose what made their own sound important. Even though the lyrics have changed, they at least make an attempt to not be as blunt and convey more emotion and cover topics like abuse, addiction, and depression, as well as what the song about before, even going down darker paths with it. It's a very welcome balance, and it feels like this album is what should have come out after Fever, but hey, a man can dream. Matt's vocals have improved with him being forced to scream more and pulling triple due to his great guitarist, good bass lines, and fantastic screaming. Padge's own guitar work is always awesome, with shredding solos and playing like fast riffs. James' own screams sound good too, so I can appreciate that, even if it wasn't him, he still sounded good. And Moose's drumming is good for his last album with the band, being as sharp as he ever was, with more speed for the thrashy moments of the album. Standout songs include the title track, You Want a Battle, Here's a War, Army of Noise, No Way Out, and my favourite, and Broken. With Venom, the band picked up the slack from the previous album, adding more heaviness, solos, and memorability, improving where they needed to without going too much over the line. I can recommend this one easily. Even though it has a worse score on Metacritic, like 58 compared to Temper Temper's 60, there's just not something right with that. No. So let's round them all up. Most favourite is probably Scream Out Fire. It's balanced, brilliantly performed, and the production and lyrics are just stellar, not to mention still being easy to get into. Least favourite is Temper Temper. It tries too hard in all the wrong places, it's overproduced at times, it's just repetitive and pretty boring. Still, that's not to say that it's all bad, as even on the worst albums, there's still something to like. That's pretty much one of the reasons why backtracking exists in the first place. Anyway, join me next time as we head back to California and cover mask-wearing rap rockers, Hollywood Undead. Looking forward to it. As always, thank you for listening. You're awesome. Bye bye.